Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we're going to discuss the 1985 cult classic film, The Goonies, story by Steven Spielberg, screenplay by Chris Columbus, directed by Richard Donner, produced by Steven Spielberg, Kathleen Kennedy, a bunch of other people. Hour 50 something minutes long. This is the kid version of Indiana Jones, if you will. Indiana Jones was what, 84, something like that? And then we have Goonies right after that. Same production companies, basically, same people involved, almost. This is an iconic film, which is also in the National Film Archives registry. Just like we talked about how Fast Times at Ridgemont High was in there for cultural relevance, time period piece, stuff like that. Aesthetic. This is also in the film registry for the same cultural reasons. This takes place in mid 80s, Astoria, Oregon. A bunch of kids are trying to figure out what to do to make sure that their community is not, bulldozed down to make a golf course for a country club. And so it's a last ditch effort. Goonies is what the group of 13-year-olds calls themselves. And then the older brother, Brand, and his, group of friends are then honorary Goonies mixed in the mix of the adventure. They find a treasure map in the attic of a local legend about One-Eyed Willie hiding his pirate ship of gold. The Spanish Armada somehow getting to Oregon at one given point. And then the Spaniards, they had a massive, fleet at one given point. They were in the Atlantic, they were in the Pacific. So then this story pertains to gold from a Spanish ship being left in Astoria, Oregon. How it was trapped behind a cave all this time. The ship was trapped behind a cave all this time, and things, right? So then their dad is this curator of the local museum and has all this stuff in the attic, but nobody really, has done anything of it. Their parents explored, tried to find it at one point. Nobody found it. There was the local legend then of Chester Copperbot, who is an explorer who went to go find it, but he was never found again. So having the different characters coming together, the kid characters, Sean Astin plays Mike, Mikey Walsh, younger brother of Brand Walsh, who is played by Josh Brolin. Corey Feldman is Mouth. Data is played by Ke Huy Quan. So it's great seeing Ke Huy Quan in both an Indiana Jones film and, The Goonies, both Steven Spielberg properties, because he was an adventure kid, an Amblin Project adventure kid. And then, seeing him now win an Oscar, it's just so great to see a full circle moment. Having a Goonies reunion at the Oscars, a full circle moment. Will there ever be a sequel? Who knows? We're finally getting a Lego set. Can't wait for that with the giant pirate ship. Oh, it's going to be gorgeous. But then having the other characters as well. You have their friend Chunk. You have Andy, Steph, who are friends of Brand. So having the 7 of them, and then eventually just the 6 of them going through the caves under this restaurant and do booby trap here and booby trap there, and Chunk being captured by the Fratelli family, who's this criminal family in Astoria, happens to be in Astoria, so they're taking base at this restaurant and they're killing feds, and it's violence. There's a lot of violence in this film for a kid film, but it's still an adventure. It's a life adventure along the way. What happens when you then meet the deformed sibling of the Fratellis, who they've just chained horrifically to the wall and named him Sloth of all things. Poor Sloth just wants to eat and they won't feed him things, right? So then Chunk saves Sloth and Sloth saves Chunk, and they go on their adventure to save the Goonies and bring the Fratellis to justice. And there's the massive battles at the end, and then they have the jewels still in the marble bag, and then they can save the town because then the pirate ship gets to escape and goes off into the sunset. It's just, if you don't get chills watching the end of the film, you're doing something wrong, because the picturesque moment of the Goonies with Sloth and the town and the news reporter saying, folks, it appears to be there's a pirate ship sailing away. And it's one of those moments you're like, they did it. They saved the town. It's one of those entertaining moments in a cartoon where it's like, something happens, blah, blah, there's destruction everywhere, and like, yeah, we saved the town. It's like one of those fun memes, but it's a thing. And to have the seagulls just flowing around in the background, and like, you can't train a seagull. You're not telling a seagull to swoop this way. Like, having the seagulls actually being a part of that brings a sense of authenticity, brings a sense of realism. Having the house and the kids with their clothes and Data with his invention tech and all these things, it's very significant to that time period. It's very authentic, it's gritty. Barely having any CGI for this, just having practical effects and stunts, and seeing the little wires that are attached to the kids, as they're falling or things like that. Like, it's authentic. Having puppet bats on fishing lines flying around, and you see it, and it's authentic. All these years later, and they're not taking out the lines. Like, they're not CGIing away the lines. They're keeping the lines in. It's authentic. It's real. It shows that these were real props interacting with the kids back in the day, almost 40 years ago. It's rare. You don't really see a lot of films with actual props. A lot of stuff is green screen now. So to have it as an actual authentic prop, it brings that grit, brings that sense of realism and authenticity. That's why this is so culturally relevant, because it's so tactical. And that's why it's been in the film archives. And it's a fantastic story about overcoming and striving through. And the only problems I have with this is that if Mouth didn't speak Spanish, they would never be able to translate the map. And if Andy never played the piano, they would never be able to pass the bone organ. Otherwise, everything else is fine. It's just those one little caveats. If Mouth didn't speak Spanish and if Andy didn't play the piano, the story would have never progressed. But we can look past that. It's fine. It's a wonderful, wonderful film about championing for the little guy. It's a wonderful film about sticking together. We're all in this together. I just love it. I love the project. I've always loved the project. And what's interesting about this is that because it's almost 2 hours long, it doesn't feel like it's almost 2 hours long. It just feels like adventure after adventure, and then you have the serious life moments of the kids, and you have the conversations, but it doesn't drag. You don't feel like you're bored at any point. It's one thing after the other, and you're like, yes, let's do this. So I'm very curious if there ever will be a sequel. Cannot wait for the Lego set. That Lego set is going to be insane. It's probably going to be $400 because there's a lot of minifigures and a full pirate ship. I'm curious if we'll get a one-eyed Willy figure as well. That would be cool. That would be very cool. But I really love the booby traps of this. I really love the Rube Goldberg effect. You pull this one lever and this thing happens and that thing happens, which is very awesome in regards to foreshadowing. That's what happened throughout the booby traps. That's what happened within regards to the pirate ship as well. Because the Walsh family has that full setup, along with Data having that full setup. Rube Goldberg effect, one thing after another. This will fall here, and the chicken will lay an egg, and then the egg will fall this way. They had in the beginning of the movie, foreshadowing them that they are used to this, and then that's what the booby traps are, and that's what the pirate ship is, so they know how to work with it for the betterment of tomorrow. No pun intended, because they literally needed to save the day in order to make sure that the community lives on to see another day. The Goonies, 1985 classic film. Goonies never say die. On to the next review. Mucho mahalo.